What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Tea with Carley. I'm your host, Carley, aka Teacher Carley, and today I want to talk about something that has been on my mind and kind of heavy on my heart since I've been on my vacation. If you guys don't know, I went on a 5-week vacation with my family to both Japan and Vietnam. And I actually did a Tea with Carley podcast episode on that a couple weeks ago. So you can go back and look if you're curious just about all my adventures and my travels. But one thing I noticed when I was gone and when I was traveling around is that people don't understand what it takes to speak English like a native. And that just goes for everyone. Native English speakers, they don't understand how difficult it can be to learn a new language or to be able to study another language to the point where you're pretty much fluent in that other language and you're pretty much native. They don't understand the hard work that has to be put in. So if you're listening to this and you are a native English speaker, yeah, it's hard work and it takes basically a lifelong commitment to get to where you want to be. I'm not saying it's going to take your entire life to get to where you want to be, but it's not easy. And a lot of my ESL students or friends or people that I even met randomly on my trip, they just lack a lot of qualities that you need in order to succeed and in order to be able to speak English like a native. So I want to go over today, I don't even know how many I have, to be honest, like the top few things that I think you need to understand. You not only need to, you must understand if you want to speak English like a native. First and foremost, I'm pretty sure everybody knows where I'm going with this. You have to understand that confidence is key. You have to have confidence. And I know this is like more so a YouTube video rather than me, getting up here and spilling the tea with you all. But it's been like I said, it's been heavy on my heart because I see so many people, I've interacted with so many people that they speak English so well, but they don't have confidence. They don't think that they speak well. And then they start to overthink. And then they let me know, they preface everything that they say with the words, "Oh, I don't speak English so well, so I'm so sorry." Or they say things like, "My English is not that great, but ... And those sayings, I understand. You say it so that you feel a little bit more comfortable. And I've been there too. I say it as well. When I'm speaking Korean, I am guilty of saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, like I don't speak Korean so well," or, "Oh, I'm sorry, like I haven't spoken Korean in a while." I'm guilty of saying those things as well. I understand that we are human, and I understand that sometimes it's just easier to admit your flaws straight up rather than having someone else notice them. So I understand why people do it, but it seriously hinders your own confidence. And I don't think people understand that's how it happens. I think people think, "Oh, let me just preface this by saying that I'm not good at English, and then I'll be able to speak comfortably however I like. And then people will understand, oh, I'm not a native English speaker, and all will be well." Yeah, it kind of seems like that. And maybe you might get lucky and it might be like that. But on the back burner, on the back end of things, it does hinder your confidence because you're constantly speaking into existence, speaking out loud, telling others, telling yourself that you're not good at English. So that kind of hinders your confidence whether you realize it or not. Confident students are more likely to engage in conversations, they're more likely to practice speaking, and they're more likely to take risks. If you are not willing to do those things, or if you just heard me say those things and you're like, that's not me, then I hate to break it to you, but you're not a confident speaker. Confidence often translates into many different things, including body language, and body language can improve your communication, and it makes, talking even more fun, exciting, interactive, and engaging. So it portrays, people don't understand that confidence, when you carry yourself with a certain type of confidence, people notice. I'm big into body language. I speak with my hands in all languages. I only know really 2 languages, but I try my best to, whenever I travel, to learn a little bit of the other languages of the countries that I'm visiting. And I make sure to incorporate body language as well. And I'm not confident when it comes to speaking languages that I've never learned. All right, that I only know a few things because I'm traveling. Like I was just in Vietnam. I was definitely not confident, when I was in Vietnam because I only know a handful of Vietnamese words. And even with that, most of the Vietnamese words I know are food related because my husband is Vietnamese, so I have a Vietnamese family that I interact with on the daily. And so you would think I would know a little bit more, but I don't. Vietnamese is a very difficult language, and I'm ashamed to admit that I don't know more, but I don't. So when I was in Vietnam, I resorted to either forcing my husband to translate for me or my husband's family to translate for me or getting by with body language, just trying to talk with my body language and the few Vietnamese words that I knew and trying to mix some English in there. And I wasn't confident at all in what I was saying because honestly, I don't even know what I was saying half the time, but I tried to fake it till I make it. I know it's easier said than done. I know that everybody's like, "Oh, well, confidence is key. Confidence is key." And you have to like put your shoulders back, chest out, be confident in what you have to say. But no, when you're speaking another language, you are so vulnerable that that's a really difficult task to take on when you actually have to be confident. For me, I've experienced this firsthand ever since I've been learning a second language, which I began learning Korean in 2012. So it's been about 12 years now that I realized just how vulnerable I am when I speak another language. I get anxiety. I sometimes stumble over my words. Even in English, I tend to stumble over my words sometimes, but especially when I speak a second language, I overthink and it's difficult to be confident. But confidence is key, which you might think like, Carley, you sound like a hypocrite. You say that you're not confident and then you're saying confidence is key. Yeah, you have to build that confidence. It's not necessarily a switch that you flip on the wall and you're like, "Oh, I'm going to be confident in my English today." Shoop, turn that on. No, it takes time, it takes practice, and ultimately you have to realize, and this is what helped a lot for me. Everyone has their own journey, their own language journey, but the fact that you are actually on a language journey just means so much. Like, I'm not saying that you're better than other people, but I'm not saying that you're not better than other people. Like, a lot of people in this world, especially here in America where I live, they just live their whole life and die only knowing one language. They never go out of the country or they never embark on a language learning journey. And I just feel like it's so respectful, of some people. Like, I don't know if respectful is the correct word here, but I just respect people a lot when they embark on a language learning journey because it's a difficult thing to do. What I tell my students is, dude, you already know one language fluently, your native language. And now you are in my classes or you're watching my videos. That means you are at least advanced in another language. And then a lot of my students and my viewers, my friends, they also speak another language. They speak 2, 3, sometimes even 4 languages, because they have, they're speaking English with me. They have their native language, but then maybe they grew up somewhere else. So they have that, or they grew up in a country that has 2 languages spoken simultaneously. So I'm like, you guys are already amazing. You have to just admit it out loud. Hey, I'm amazing. And I speak multiple languages. And maybe I'm not the greatest at all these languages, but at least I can speak it. And that alone gives you the confidence boost that you need sometimes to just let go of your insecurities, get all that mess out of your head saying like, "Oh, like I don't know how to speak English and I'm nervous." And it's normal to be nervous, but like when you let go of that, the confidence just skyrockets. Obviously, you have to practice, in order to help that confidence go up too. But I'm telling you, like, I realized that when I speak Korean to my friends that I'm comfortable with, that I know do not care if I make mistakes, that I know will correct me if I make mistakes, that I know are rooting for me, I speak Korean so well. I'm natural. But when I have to speak to someone that I think will judge me, or someone maybe older, someone I think might have some kind of predisposition on me or the way I speak or something, or even just my nationality, I just get so nervous. And a few years back, I realized, dude, Carley, it's not that serious. You're already going out of your way to speak another language so that somebody else feels more comfortable so that they can comprehend what you're saying. You don't have to, be nervous saying that you can't understand this, or all in all, when it comes to confidence, you just have to have a willingness to speak. A willingness is all you need to have to speak. And then, of course, practice. Practice makes progress. So, of course, practicing your English. And if you're listening to this right now, you're already on the right path to doing that. So I think one of the many things that I think, in my opinion, that you have to understand to speak English like a native is confidence is important. Confidence is key. You cannot speak fluently like a native if you don't have the confidence needed. If you don't even trust yourself, saying like, "Oh, I have my own doubts in myself." If you don't even believe in yourself, then how are others supposed to believe in you? The next thing is consistency. Confident students are more likely to, like I said, engage in conversations, practice speaking, and take risks, But in order to do all those things, you can't just do it one time and be like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I did that. Woo, mark that off my bucket list. Let me never do that again. No, you have to be consistent. You have to consistently practice. You have to consistently engage in conversations and consistently take risks. You have to overcome the fear of making mistakes. This goes back to confidence as well, but if you consistently practice, if you consistently put yourself out there and, every chance you get, try to speak English, and take risks that maybe others would stay quiet, but you are like, no, I can help, or no, like, I feel like I can add value to this conversation, and you put yourself out there, that helps you overcome your fear of making mistakes. The reason being is if you are too afraid to even talk, then you're never going to get anywhere. You're never going to progress down this journey. But if you get over that fear, you overcome the fear of speaking, then you're overcoming the fear of making mistakes. Because, let's be honest, everybody makes mistakes. And when you are on a language journey, you're going to make mistakes. It's inevitable, you guys, especially if that language journey is English, because English is difficult. English is extremely difficult. I don't know how many times I have to say this, because some of my friends that are native English speakers, they're learning other languages, or they just try for one day, they're like, oh, I want to learn Japanese. And they're like, oh no, I quit that because that's too difficult. And I'm like, dude, English is a lot more difficult. I'm like, what are you talking about? Okay, it's not difficult to you, maybe, because you are a native English speaker, but it's difficult. And they're like, well, you're a native English speaker and you don't think it's difficult. No, I think it's extremely difficult. I have a degree in English and I still don't know everything about English. I have basically dedicated my life to learning the ins and outs of English and the English language and teaching that to others. And I still don't know everything because English is such a difficult and complex language. There's a million ways to say one thing. There's a million different words you can use to say and express one thing, not even to include the idioms, the slangs, the expressions, all the different types of colloquialisms we use every day. It's extremely difficult. I learned Korean and I'm like, oh, this is hard. And then going back and teaching English, I'm like, no, Korean is easy compared to English, or teaching English, or, learning English, So being consistent and making sure that you are not afraid to make mistakes is extremely important when you want to speak any language, but specifically what I'm talking about here is speaking English like a native. You have to build the confidence and you have to view your mistakes as learning opportunities rather than failures. That is what is essential for growth. If you keep on viewing your mistakes as failures, you're never going to get anywhere. It's going to knock you down again and again and again to a point where you're not going to get back up. You're not going to get back. You're going to be like, no, I make too many mistakes. I'm just going to give up. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of failing. But you have to change your viewpoint. Those mistakes are learning opportunities. I used to be so upset when people corrected me, like especially when I spoke Korean, but with anything in life, when people correct me, I would get embarrassed. I would get so upset. And now I don't, because I changed my way of thinking. I changed my viewpoint. I'm like, oh, they're not correcting me to belittle me, or they're not correcting me to point out my errors or my mistakes. This is them saying, hey, let's take this as a learning opportunity. Let me teach you right now what is the correct way to do this or to say this. And in the future, you'll remember this moment, which is true. Most of the time, whenever somebody corrects me and I realize, oh, okay, yeah, that was wrong, I will never forget that again because I remember that exact time that I was corrected, and then moving forward, I know how to say it correctly. So just the consistency you need to speak, to engage in conversations, to overcome your fears, to practice, and then the active participation that you need. Like, you need to actively participate in discussions, asking questions, like when you're in a classroom setting or when you're with friends. You need to put yourself in situations that will enhance your language skills. If you're like, oh my gosh, I can't speak English, I don't know, I can't do this, I can't do that, because all I do is I go to work and I stay home. And at work, I speak my native language, and at home, I speak my native language. All right, well, then you're not putting yourself in situations where you can speak English, where you can practice, where you're not being consistent in your language learning, because you can only learn so much behind a screen or behind a book. You have to actually go out there and you have to practice in order to learn, And so a lot of my friends, sometimes they just want to talk with me. They're like, hey, do you have time to talk? And I'm like, yeah, sure. What's up? And they're like, I just haven't spoken English in a while. And I'm like, bet, I got you. Let's have a conversation. Let's talk about our lives. Let's catch up. Even if we talk about the weather or something random, don't be afraid to put yourself out there and have an English conversation. You have to have that confident, positive mindset. You have to put yourself in this mindset where you're like, dude, I can tackle all these challenges. I'm amazing. I'm on this language journey. I've got this, I'm confident, I'm consistent. And don't be afraid, like I was, of corrections, because sometimes I used to think, man, I must really suck, if people are out here correcting me left and right. But in the end, constructive feedback or constructive criticism from friends or teachers or language partners or whatever, they just help you identify your areas of improvement, like what you need to improve on and everything. And once I realized that, I was like, okay, that makes sense. And I need to view this in a different perspective. Once I started viewing it in a different perspective, I was like, okay, everybody that's correcting me, they're not out to get me. They're not saying, oh my gosh, I have to correct you 500 times. Your Korean is trash. No, that's not what they're saying. They're saying, hey, Carly, let me help you so you never make this mistake again. So I know I said a lot about confidence. I said a lot about consistency. I kind of got off on this little tangent about, having a good mindset and not thinking that the corrections or, constructive criticism is a bad thing. But to sum up everything, and I know this is a little bit of a shorter Tea with Carly, and I might have a story time for you guys, But again, another thing that you need to know if you want to speak English like a native is it's so much more than a textbook, which I literally just said 5 minutes ago, but you have to know culture. If you only learn English from, your books, or you only learn English from a class and you never study American culture or British culture or whatever, Australian culture or whatever language that, type of English that you're learning, you're never going to be able to speak English like a native. And I know I just said that and you're like, gasp. How dare she say this? She's supposed to be encouraging us. Like, what is she doing? I'm leveling with you all. I'm telling you guys the truth. I did not realize how important culture was when learning a new language until I began to learn a new language myself. If you guys don't know, a little backstory, I started basically teaching English when I was in middle school. I was tutoring the exchange students at my school, and I have been basically teaching English the majority of my life now. But before I started learning Korean, when I was teaching English or tutoring English, I didn't understand the difficulties behind learning a new language. I didn't understand how people don't automatically pick up on cultural references or jokes or the social norms here in America. I didn't understand why my foreign exchange student friends were having trouble understanding these things until I myself went to a foreign country, which was Japan first and then Korea. And I was totally immersed in a culture, in the language, in the people, in the food, in the everything, Cultural immersion made me realize that culture is such a huge part of language learning. If you don't understand the culture, you're not going to be able to fully understand the language. Even if you have like a doctorate degree in that language, if you've never been to that country, if you've never been around those people, if you've never interacted with those people, and you don't understand their culture, you're not going to be able to fully say that you can speak like a native. Maybe you're really good on paper. Maybe you can make 25-page essay in that second language and it doesn't have not one mistake in it. But when you get put out in the real world with the real people and they start using slang, they start using idioms, the cultural, like everything, like I don't even know how to explain it properly. Just little social norms here and there in that culture that are going to go way over your head. You're not going to understand them. That's what's going to happen. You have to have familiarity with cultural references, with humor, with the social norms. And all of these things are going to help you understand conversations and help you be able to engage appropriately in those conversations. And I told you guys I was going to tell you a story. This is my quick little story time about when I was living in South Korea. So when I first moved to South Korea, I basically only knew how to say hi, which is 안녕하세요. I knew how to say 안녕하세요, and I knew how to say the one sentence was 화장실 어디에 있어요? 화장실 means bathroom. So 화장실 어디에 있어요 means like, where's the bathroom? That's all I knew. And of course, my pronunciation was so trash back then. Even now, I feel like I need to get back into actively learning Korean. I have a lot of things on my plate this year. Ever since I started my YouTube channel, I put my YouTube channel first after my family and my 9-to-5 job. My YouTube channel is up there. And then of course the academy that I work for is right up there too. So I've kind of put my wants and needs and things that I want to do on the back burner for the last year or so. So I do feel like these days, I do struggle with confidence when I speak Korean and with my pronunciation and everything. But back then, I'm just going to tell you, I didn't know any Korean. I never even learned really. I tried here and there, but I only knew those two things and my pronunciation was really bad. So I go to Korea and then I enroll in a university where I start learning Korean. This is so embarrassing for me to say. The first semester I completely failed. Like completely failed. And that wasn't for lack of trying. Like I tried to learn Korean. I was studying. I had like a million different little flashcards that I learned. The expression we use is burning the midnight oil, which means I was staying up late, studying. I would go to school and then leave school. I would go to school from like 8 to 3, and it was Korean school. Like literally all day I just learned Korean from 8 to 3. And then I would go to work from like 4 to 10. And then I would come back and I would study, until like midnight or later. And then I would wake up early and then I would do it. And I did that for a little bit. Now people are listening to this, Carly, I know you. I know you were going out with your friends. I know you were traveling here and there. Yes, I was also living my best life. I was in a new country, all right? But I made sure that I had my flashcards with me everywhere I went. Every time I was on the bus, boom, studying Korean. Every time I had a minute, boom, studying Korean. Lunch breaks at work, boom, studying Korean. Like I always had my stuff with me to study. And I really thought like, okay, I got this. And I went to my test, and on the test that we take, we had a written portion, and an oral exam. The written exam, I did fairly well. Now, I will say the first go around, my first semester, I failed, but I got back up again, and I took the class over again, and I aced it. But back to the first go around. My written exam, I would translate everything into English. And it was timed, so I only had like maybe 45 minutes, but I wasted so much time going through and translating everything into English so that I can like read it and everything, that I didn't have time to actually answer everything once I got done translating. So I wasted all my time translating and I didn't have time to actually answer the questions. So automatically that's like a 0 pretty much. I was like, well, failed that part. I go over to the oral exam part and I literally just have to introduce myself. They're like, hey, Carly, introduce yourself. And I'm like, okay, let me introduce myself. And I just say, hi, my name is Carly. I'm American. At that time, I was 20 years old. So I was like, I'm 20 years old. I'm American. I moved to Korea a few months ago. Blah, 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 blah. I don't even remember exactly what I said, but I sounded so robotic. Like literally, I sounded like a robot. I sounded like the Korean version of Siri on your phone. And some of you might think like, oh wow, like your pronunciation was that great. Oh wow, your grammar was great. It was so unnatural. I didn't know the culture enough. I'd only been in Korea for like 3 months. I didn't understand, that I can use slang here and there, or there's a lot of different ways to say things to make it not sound so robotic, instead of saying like 안녕하세요. 저는 Carley입니다. I could just say it like, oh, like 안녕하세요. 저는 Carley입니다. Like just a different way, different paces even. I wasn't able to study how Koreans speak and how their flow goes, So I was up there sounding like a robot. And of course, as you know, I didn't pass that go around. The next time I did pass, and I got it down pat after that. I only took one time to fail. And then I was like, I got this. But it's the same goes for learning English. I always tell people the best way to study English when you don't really feel like studying is just listen. Watch movies in English or TV shows or YouTube, right? Like what you're doing now, just listening. That's the best way to learn English when you don't really feel like learning or when you don't really want your brain to be turned on. Because I know sometimes we're busy adults and you just don't feel like learning, after a long, hard day of work or whatever. So listening helps because maybe you're like, oh, well, how is that going to help my speaking? How is it going to help me, be able to have better conversations in English if I'm not the one talking, if I'm not the one practicing speaking? Well, you're listening to native speakers talk. You're getting a better understanding of how we speak and the flow. And a byproduct of that is you're learning about our culture, because whatever we're talking about right now, there's probably going to be some social norms that we talk about, or there's going to be some, cultural references or some type of jokes that we crack that you're going to be like, oh, okay, that's American culture. That's okay. I get it. Or we're probably going to use slang or some idioms or, whatever in there. And you're going to be like, oh, okay, I know that. I know what that means. That means this, and you're going to slowly be able to piece things together. And ultimately, it's just going to make you a better speaker. When I first started this Tea with Carley, I didn't really know where it was going to go. I mean, not today's episode. I have an outline. I'm talking about when I first decided to start having podcasts, because I'm like, dude, I already talk a lot on my YouTube channel. Like I already teach English a lot. What can I say on these podcasts that's going to be any different? But one thing that I love about the podcast is that it's such a relaxing setting for me. I'm literally, this is totally calling me out here, but I'm literally sitting here in my pajamas with my coffee. My kids are still asleep and I'm recording this podcast for you all because I feel like you guys are my family and I want to tell you guys what's on my heart. And I mentioned when I was traveling, my heart ached a little bit for people that just didn't have confidence or that showed such an interest in American culture or in English, learning English, but they never thought that they were good enough to do it, to embark on that journey. Even my own family members, like my husband's family members, which by proxy are mine now that we're married and now that we have a child, together, whatever. Even like my own family members in Vietnam were saying things like, oh, no, I'm not smart enough for that. Or no, I can never do that. I love English. I love America, but I can never do it. And it just hurt. It hurt to hear those words because I'm one of those people that call me naive, call me stubborn, call me whatever you want. But I firmly believe that you can do whatever you put your mind to as long as you try. Like I will be that person that's telling you, if you feel like you can grow wings and you can fly, you better try your hardest to grow wings and fly. Obviously that's a dramatic example, but I'm just saying, I always tell people like, if you have the motivation to do something, you can do it. It might not take you that long, or it might take you the rest of your life. You never know, but you're not going to know unless you try. So at least attempt it. But if you're going to attempt it, you better put your whole heart into it because you can't leave the excuse of like, oh, I tried it. It didn't work out if you didn't give it your all. I'm saying all that to say anybody can do whatever they put their mind to. You can learn how to speak English like a native. And if you are one of my friends that are native English speakers here, you can learn how to speak a new language like a native. Maybe it's not even English. Maybe it's whatever language you've been thinking about learning lately. I didn't mean for this to become like a motivational, a 30 something minute long motivational speech, But it has been heavy on my heart the past few weeks because I just think that most people need that little confidence boost. They need that little bit of motivation every now and then. They need people to recognize, hey, I know that you're doing an amazing job, but I also know that you can do even better, and I also know that you're capable of so much more. So that's what Teacher Carly is doing today. That's what I came in here to do. The things that I think everybody needs to understand if they want to speak English like a native, just to sum up, all in all, you have to be confident, you have to be consistent, and you have to know the culture. I guess you can call this the 3 C's. I didn't even realize they all started with C until now, but the 3 C's: confidence, consistency, and culture. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed listening to today's podcast. If you did, please like, comment, and subscribe. Please leave comments, feedback, even constructive criticism. I'm ready for it. Things that you would like to hear in the upcoming podcast, anything and everything, please leave that in the comments below. And I hope to see you all in the next episode.
Why we're surrounded by